Hey, it's been a long time. How has the pandemic been? I'm sure your work life has been different from the one pre-COVID. Let us talk a little more about that.
Has your work life been dominating your life at home? Do you find yourself lost in your bed but present at work? Have you been actively measuring and trying to monitor your productivity?
And we want to ask you in the year 2020, have you been exhausted by work even when you're within the boundaries of your comfort zone at home?
We have been working on a way to share a simple desire to work a little less and live a little more.
This is an idea addressed by David Frayne in Refusal of Work that has inspired this project, challenging the notion that work should be valued more than other pastimes, practices, and forms of social contribution.
Hi, this is Kanika Goel.
And I'm Simoni Shah.
And for our undergraduate Year 3 project, we've been working on a toolkit to raise awareness about these critical questions and notions.
A sociologist, Catherine Casey, described work in 1995 as work as it's conventionally organized significantly shapes everyday life experiences for most people in industrial society, whether one is in or out of employment, preparing for it, or seeking it.
Or maybe just taking a break from it.
Now, the concept of work can invoke a varied set of ideas, and any attempts to define it leads us to a huge web of explanations.
Before we proceed, all references to the term work in this video refers to any forms of labor that leads to an economic gain.
To begin with, we can agree that there is a necessity to work in our lives due to the simple need of paying for needs and commercial pleasure.
Roger Bell described the workers in 1950 to be concerned with how to spend well and enjoy. It appears though that since then, workers' ideals have shifted more towards how to work and achieve.
We do recognize there can be a satisfaction gained from a day of hard labor. However, this is not a critique of the attitudes installed in the worker, but the moral, material, and political pressures that bear down on the worker.
This shift can also be observed by more tangible transformations in the working day itself. The payment of workers became tied to working hours, and the labor was regimented and synchronized by the adoption of clock time. By the 20th century, industrialization had provided unparalleled opportunities for managers to coordinate the pace and procedures of the labor process. Work was divided down into predictable, routine tasks, and the pace of work was dictated by the moving assembly line.
Alertness and punctuality were policed by penalties and surveillance technologies, and workers were reminded, as per Benjamin Franklin's well-known dictum, that time is money. Through these combined processes, punctuality, efficiency, and productivity became the mottos of the working day.
Labor has now been disciplined. We can observe the augmentation of this, especially in the past year through the introduction of AWS Panorama by Amazon.
This is a machine learning application and software development kit. One can use AWS Panorama to evaluate manufacturing quality, identify bottlenecks in industrial process, and monitor workplace safety and security, even in environments with limited or no internet connectivity.
Surveillance technology has now been put in charge of disciplined labor, and labor is now seen as productivity or a serial number on someone's uniform. It has discarded the worth of a worker.
Makes you think.
Actually think a bit too much.
It would be nice to take a break from it.
Makes me think about how maybe this pandemic could have been considered a nice break. You know, the whole work from home situation or whatnot. We have been wondering if this can become the new normal.
I can say one thing, it has definitely made us a bit lazier.
Ich glaube, das war im Winter 2020, als das ganze Land auf uns schoss. Eine unsichtbare Gefahr bedrohte alles, woran wir glaubten. Und das Schicksal dieses Landes lag plötzlich in unseren Händen. Also fassten wir alle unseren Mut zusammen und taten, was von uns erwartet wurde. Das einzig Richtige. Wir taten nichts. Absolut gar nichts. Waren faul wie die Waschbären. Tage und Nächte lang blieben wir auf unserem Arsch zu Hause und kämpften gegen die Ausbreitung des Coronavirus. Unsere Couch war die Front und unsere Geduld war unsere Waffe.
I've been attending all of my classes in the comfort of my home. I have a fresh meal ready to eat in 5 minutes. I have enough time to actually do my laundry for once.
Hey, I do not know about you, but I have my alarm set at 9:58 a.m. so I do not miss my 10 a.m.s.
I mean, what would you even consider to be the measurements of being lazy or even being productive?
Through this project, we wanted to rethink the purpose of laziness, from understanding the origin of this word to its effect in our current lives and its future implications.
Over the last year forcing everyone to work from home, it has transformed the conventional ideas of work by rejecting the capitalist idea of an 8-hour working day. People have found different ways to be productive and lazy at the same time.
We aim to use a domestic object as countermetrics that remind people to rest and stop working, highlighting how free time is increasingly colonized by work as more people have been working from home during the pandemic and it's becoming harder to separate work and home life.
Trying to challenge the ergonomics of the workplace, except the workplace is in the middle of the living room now.
We began with trying to depict our understanding of the word laziness through physical models, trying to research the different attributes of a lazy person, their habits, workplace routine, how they sleep, what they do, and their moods.
Our next step entailed replicating the behavior and movements of lazy people by indulging ourselves as couch potatoes.
We were able to then quickly identify and highlight our positions of comfort and asked ourselves how long can we sit in comfort and discomfort at the same time.
That question is what inspired our lazy boys.
Think about your comfort. I mean 5-star comfortable. Your place, your space, where all the troubles of today, where all the worries of tomorrow simply go away. Feel the pressure removed from your feet as your legs are lifted up. The cuddling support in your back while laying down to a position that is so relaxing. Bruce Furniture has a Lazy Boy recliner that is just right for you.
Ergonomics concern itself with the study of people's efficiency in their working environment.
So we set out to understand the ergonomics of laziness.
The foundation of which was provided by our lazy boys, inspecting not only our postures but our movements as well.
Inspired by the time and motion study done by Frederick Winslow Taylor, a measurement-obsessed mechanical engineer, and Frank and Lillian Gilbert.
Taking a page from their journal, we set out to identify the workplace around each chair, trying to map out the space where the worker is placed in.
We then wanted to study the environment around each posture, chair, and position. Taylor was set out on mapping out the knowledge of how a task was done by identifying, fragmenting, and regimenting workflows and to deploy methods of performance monitoring.
Dismantling this context from their work and attaching it to the practice of laziness, we began re-identifying the space around us.
We recognized 3 main areas around us: the intimate area, personal area, frequent use areas, and infrequent use areas.
The areas marked then aid in arranging your workspace according to yourself. One may want to place items in order of need and then position them accordingly.
Once the space had been worked out, the next step involved user feedback. We had a few people interact with our chairs and understand how they would position themselves on them.
It's not really uncomfortable. It's like a vibe. I like the space of it. It makes me feel like I can lean back.
Yeah.
How else would I sit? I feel like there's a puzzle with these other pieces. I mean, the thing is, I'd sit like this and I would hunch my back on my computer. These are a bit like stirrups.
Oh,
is that what you meant?
Like an anti-man spreading something? Because
That one is very obvious to me.
Only time I cross my legs is when I'm sat on the ground.
After taking all of our research into consideration, we asked ourselves, how can we now use all of this into reclaiming laziness?
I can start from here.
Well, maybe we can start from a bit earlier. There was a time when anyone who chose to opt out of a traditional working society was considered lazy.
However, over the course of time, the margin for those who qualify as lazy just became greater.
It began to describe any and all forms of redundancy and reluctance to work as laziness. The idea of doing nothing is just unsettling, so much so, mindfulness and meditation were once a part of the lazy description.
What would you consider about homemakers? Would their job description be considered as lazy?
Looking at this from a historic and a very definitive perspective, I would say no. Being lazy was kind of considered a privilege only the men and the working class were eligible for in the mid-70s. Products such as Lazy Boys were a constant reminder how the chair was meant to fulfill the comforts of men.
I suppose the opposite to being lazy cannot be considered as work, but as productivity. There's this obsession with having to occupy attention at all times. Am I expected to be productive every hour of my workday?
I think that is crazy, because even when I want to take a break, I'm expected to do something.
What do you do in your break if you're not doing anything?
It is my break, right? I honestly just prefer to rest my eyes. I'm exhausted by screens.
Rest is not a state of concern. There appears to be a possibility that laziness may be written in our genes. As hunter-gatherers, there was the need to conserve energy to compete for resources, escape from predators, and fend off enemies.
To me personally, I would describe laziness as the optimization of time and effort, to such an extent that we as humans work towards making things a little more convenient for us to be a little more lazy.
Huh. Thinking about it, almost everything that has been designed for the sake of convenience. Intentionally or unintentionally, I think we may be working towards a future that is very similar to the one shown in Wall-E.
You talking about the movie where all humans do is sit on chairs and are constantly looking at screens?
Almost feels like we've taken a full circle here. We are working so that we can be lazy, but we do not even let ourselves enjoy that to our content. The future depicted in Wall-E just proves that giving into lethargy and laziness is the beginning of our demise.
Laziness really isn't just sitting and staring at your screen. Sometimes your body needs to reset. Not just from work, but from everything.
Wouldn't that just be sleeping?
No, this is outside of that, in your very conscious state. When you're overwhelmed by exhaustion or stress, the objective is not for one to particularly do anything, but quite the opposite. Try and do nothing.
I do remember I would shed a lot of weight when I'm under massive amounts of stress, which I would enforce upon myself. I would not eat properly. I would simply be too lost in my work or stressed to even have a minute to myself.
Wow, that is not how I deal with stress. I find myself procrastinating and then I'm distracted easily. This leaves me feeling guilty about not working. I don't think either ends of these extremes are healthy, but I do see how certain working cultures can cultivate a varied sense of working attributes amongst people.
That all is great, but why does everything have to become work-related? Weren't we just talking about how being lazy is bad for us?
Yes, and tell me how your health was during exam season. Exactly. You're just burning out and exhaustion. What is the point of studying through the year if you're going to show up to give your paper underfed and sleepless? Do you think that will produce your best work? To stress on my point even more, I would want to talk about how the Mental Health Foundation in the UK talks about how 1/3 of respondents feel unhappy or very unhappy about the time they devote to work.
I get how the pressure to work constantly is starting to affect us negatively. The existence of this pressure baffles many. This was found in an essay written by J.M. Keynes. An economist predicted that advances in technology might help reduce the working hours per week so as to allow the whole population to work a little less. Interestingly, and I quote, "Many critical writers found it profoundly irrational that society would continue enforcing a need to work even amidst an abundance."
That does sound like a better idea than to overwork yourself. Taking a break from the boundaries of it can also help prevent people from burning out. A drastic reduction in work time for all could even enable the possibility of employing more people as well.
Maybe this is the work-life balance we're seeking for. However, there is that little necessity to work that has not gone anywhere yet.
We do not have to conquer that bigger mountain, but maybe start by moving a pebble. Taking a break can also be a small, simple form of rebellion for self and by self.
So take a break from all of this. Take a break to remind yourself that at the end of the day you're working for yourself. To remind you that the hustle is to take care of yourself. Sometimes we forget to do the latter.
Take a break to be lazy, and maybe preferably be lazy outside the constraints of any screens.
Through this project, we want to stress on the importance of taking a break from work and encouraging that habit into our daily working lives.
To help achieve a better work-life balance, we have designed these products which can help you achieve this. To begin with, let us introduce our break bench. The bench allows you to have a space to indulge your lazy desires in these comfortable resting positions. This bench has been carefully curated to allow one to dance around their breaks.
The choreography of the bench is such that it can neither be described as comfortable or uncomfortable. Each seat is crafted to provide efficient comfort only in a certain position.
The placement of the chairs allows you to occupy yourself from one pose into another without having the need to exert yourself too much.
We also wanted to construct a working model that opposed the contraption of the modern efficiency desk. This was introduced in the 1950s and was designed so that clerks who had previously used wooden desks surrounded by stacks of paper were more exposed while working and could therefore be more easily monitored.
Thus having each seat face in different directions, trying to break this regimen.
We are creatures of habit, not routine. Work from home has given us the opportunity to finally modify our working space enough to leave the constraints of an office chair.
The multiple positions scrambled around one on this bench is the space given to one to fulfill their lazy cravings, the simple desire to stretch out your legs out or to even just lie down and rest.
It is important to keep track of your time. Overindulgence of rest or work is not recommended. Amazon believes in admonishing its workers for the idle time. This includes the time they go to the bathroom as well.
It may not be the worst idea to measure the amount of time you have spent working or even idling about.
Have you noticed how clocks have changed the address from the wall to our phones now?
I'm quite content with that shift. I hate the ticking of the clock, but I do find the need to have some sense of time passing by. Whenever I have a look at my phone to check the time, I'm easily distracted by the notifications.
This made us question how one measures time outside the conventional clock or light.
Research suggests that one way to measure time can be with our senses as well. A recent study read that the dog measures time by the intensity of smell present in the room.
This incited us to make incense as a way to influence the smell in the room.
The working of the incense have been modified so it can alternate the aroma of the room, having a different scent creep in when it is time for a break.
The scent was curated as the work time flavors coffee and orange. This is in order to stimulate an environment that can be similar to the one present at work.
Versus the flavor of the break time. This flavor has more of a relaxing composition. It contains hints of lavender and vetiver.
To achieve efficient use of the incense, it is recommended to commence your work time by lighting one. The length of the incense selected will then continue to fill the room with aroma until the timer is up. The change of smell is the indication for one to take a break.
Another way to go about is for one to measure time could be via music. Boosting office productivity through music has been a psychological theory for decades. In fact, this concept was one of the original claims of the Muzak company in 1936.
Muzak is famous for soothing or mildly obnoxious elevator music. The company was founded on the idea that background music was an important way to hold and manage employees' attention.
We have manipulated the workings of the record player to embody the essence of Muzak.
The player is tweaked in order to play each record backwards and forwards. The turntable comes with the vinyl. The vinyl contains 9.5 minutes worth of Muzak, 2.5 minutes worth of silent music. The absence of tunes here stands as an indication for one to take a break until the palindromic nature of the player then asks you to get back to work again.
Let us now introduce you to the workless worker. This toolkit comprises the incense, the record player, the vinyl, the 5 seats, and the manual.
The bench provides you with the space to work and take a break on at the same time, allowing you to dictate the terms for your work and your break.
The incense and the music aims to help you keep track of time subconsciously. The toolkit comes with a manual which provides a detailed account on how to efficiently use these products.
The manual provides a detailed account from installation to operation, the do's and the don'ts for a healthy work-life balance to help you maintain this lifestyle.
Laziness has allowed me to find virtue in how to best optimize my time and effort expenditure. The do-nothing virtue has now made its way to my routine and I have zero complaints.
I am less tired, I feel well rested, and most of all, I have time for myself at the end of the day.
Similarly, we want anyone who is a part of the society, either employed or unemployed, to find this virtue as well. This toolkit is an easy setup which can be used personally as well as in communal spaces.
With Amazon, I wanted to provide a place that's quiet that people could go and focus on their mental and emotional well-being. The Zen booth is an interactive kiosk where you can navigate through a library of mental health and mindful practices to recharge that internal battery.
To quote a bear of very little brain, Winnie the Pooh, doing nothing more often leads to the very best of something.
We are not here to reiterate what everyone has already heard. Through this project, we hope we have elucidated the importance of time by encouraging you to waste it.
To quote Kanye West here, time is extremely valuable and I prefer to waste it.